All right, this is Fashion Design 1, Flat Pattern 1. It looks really thick, but it isn't. Leave the terms until the end, because as you draft, you'll start to understand some of these terms and they'll make a lot more sense if we leave them right to the end. Okay, so you have, the first draft is learning to remove a dart. That is the very basics on learning how to pattern draft. My first page is always the instructions on how to do it. Then it's me doing it for you. And then guess what? There's the blank one, and this is where you need to begin. So if we start with our front, these are all quarter scale. So quarter means if we divided all our body measurements in 4, we would get something very similar to this size. Okay, so we have our dart. First of all, this is our dart opening from here to there. Okay, and then we also have what's called your dart leg, which is here to here, and that's how long your darts are. So if we wanted to make a skirt and we didn't want to have 2 darts in the front and we just wanted it to be more of a smooth front with not much shape, we can't ignore these, because then my waist would be too big. We couldn't just say, oh, I'm going to make it as is, because these were meant to be sewn in to give this skirt's shape. So your first step is to take a ruler. Okay, centimeters is best. And we're going to measure the dart opening. So again, the dart opening starts here and goes to there. And if I put my ruler there, I feel like I get, what am I getting? I'm getting about 0.3 centimeters. Okay, so I'm going to write this down here, 0.3 centimeters or 3 millimeters. And then I'm going to measure the other dart opening. Okay, and I get 0.4 millimeters. Okay, so I'm going to write down 0.4 centimeters. If we add these together, okay, so we're going to plus them, we get 0.7 centimeters or 7 millimeters. Now that's important because that gap would normally be sewn in on both. So we're going to take off our 0.7 centimeters off our side seam. Okay, common mistake is people want to take it off our center front. This is your perfectly straight edge. It's usually placed on fold so we don't have a seam running down the front of us. Do not ever touch the center front. Okay, the other side is the side seam, has a bit of curve to it. That's the one we're going to take 0.7 off of. So taking our ruler, we're going to put the 0 right at the corner of my skirt, and I'm going to take 0.7, okay, from my edge of my skirt. So all I've done is measured from here to there, and that's 0.7. Okay, so 0.7 centimeters is this gap. Now we have to measure how long our darts are. So that's the dart leg that I was talking about. So if we measure now from the tip of our dart, so right there up to here, I'm going to get 2 centimeters. Okay, so this is 2 centimeters. So I'm going to take it off of the seam as well. It's a 2 centimeter long dart. I'm going to put my 2 right at the top of my skirt, and right at the 0, I'm going to leave myself a little dash. So with a soft curve, not a diagonal line, because then we'll get a point right here and you don't want a pointy hip, but practicing with a very soft curve, you are going to connect those 2 dots. Okay, and that means you have thought about these darts and you have moved them off your side seam. So you want to cross them out so that if somebody was going to make your skirt pattern, they wouldn't actually sew these darts anymore. Okay, we shade off that because that would be cut off of our skirt pattern, no longer part of our pattern. And that's how you remove a dart on the front. Darts on the back, you can see they're larger and longer, which makes sense. We are curvy on our behinds, so we need more curve, which means we need a larger dart. So similar to what I just showed you, you are going to measure from dart opening across. Okay, I get 0.6, And then you are going to measure the next one. Oh, I get 0.7. And just like before, we added those amounts together, so I would get 1.3 centimeters as my total. Okay, so taking it off again, the side seam, the curvier side, not that straight center back, I'm going to measure 1.3 centimeters and give myself a ticky there. I'm going to measure my dart leg, and I get 3.5 centimeters. Okay, so the length of these darts are 3.5 centimeters. So I'm going to take my 3.5 and I'm going to put it at the top corner, and I'm going to mark down here where it ended. So I'm taking off the exact same length, just off my side seam. And again, with that smooth sort of outside curve, because our curves go outwards. I do sometimes see these funny inside curves, but we do not concave on our curves. We definitely curve outwards on our body. And then just having a nice soft finish that it's not a point. We can shape this off again because that would be cut off our pattern. And this is the standard symbol that we have manipulated our darts and they are no longer needed. Yay! There is draft number 1 complete. Okay, we're going to move on to draft number 2. So you will have a blank page because the previous dart removal draft didn't need us to cut it out. So just ignore that plain page. So we're on making your skirt a low-waisted. Okay, so normally this skirt would fit at natural waist, which is a pretty high-waisted skirt. And we're asked in our instructions to lower it by 2 centimeters. Okay, to put this in perspective, these are quarter scale. So times that number by 4. It would be like lowering our waist by 8 centimeters, which would look like going from natural waist to your hip bone. So it's more of a hipster skirt, okay? So what we do is we take our blank block here, and we are not perfectly straight on our waist. So there is a gentle curve to this line, and I want us to maintain that gentle curve when we take the 2 centimeters off. So using your ruler, you're going to give yourself a few tickies, okay? So I'm going to put my ruler starting at 0 at the top and giving myself a few 2 centimeter tickies along my waistline so that I can maintain this nice gentle curve. I'm going to take one off my side seam as well here. And now it's simply connecting those ticky dots with a nice sort of gentle, smooth line, okay? And then if we lowered our waist, we would cut off that excess pattern because we don't want it. But we have some darts that remain, okay? We will go over those in just a second. It's a review of your last draft. But let's go ahead and do the same to the front. You cannot lower one and forget the other guy because they will be sewn together at your side seams. And then if you didn't lower the front and you lowered the back, your side seams wouldn't align. So whatever you do to the front, we're repeating to our back and vice versa. Okay, so I have given myself a nice 2 centimeter tick, and look at that. On our front, it eliminates all of our darts. We don't even have to do anything more to our front. Okay, but our back, we can't keep these little mini darts. They wouldn't look very flattering when it's that low waisted. Okay, so just like last draft, we are going to measure the opening from here to here because this is our new waistline. And I get 0.2, and let's go with 0.3. Okay, so 2 and 0.3 give me half a centimeter, 0.5, right? So I'm moving 0.5. I have it at half a centimeter on my side seam. I'm putting a ticky at half a centimeter on my waist, my new waist. And then I'm measuring the remaining dart leg, okay? So starting at your new waist here to the point of the dart, I get 1.6. Okay, so this length is 1.6. From there, that remains. So I'm gonna go and put a tiki at 1.6 on my side there, and just like our last draft, we are eliminating that too many darts off the side seam. Shade it out, cross those remaining darts off, and again, make sure you're not taking it off of your center front, always that curvier side. And guess what? Draft number 2 is done. For our third draft now, we are going to add gathers to our waistline. And I know the instructions tell us to remove our dart first, but I'm going to just teach you, I think, a better way, because it's kind of counterproductive to remove the darts than to add fullness back in. Because like we said before, is normally these would be sewn in to shrink your waist to fit. And when we want gathers, we want to add fullness to our waist. Okay, so gathers tend to be full gathers to moderate gathers, tend to be twice our waist length if it was a skirt. Okay, subtle gathers would be 1.5, and poofy gathers would be ×3. Okay, but today we're going to do about double our waist, because that's generally where you start. You would probably do a mock-up of your skirt, make sure that's full enough, but 2 is kind of our go-to guideline for adding fullness. Okay, so we aren't going to actually eliminate those darts, because that is helping us add fullness. We are purposely and intentionally ignoring our darts to make our waistline a bit bigger. That's not enough though. This little bit is not double our waist. So we will still have to do a draft. So on this one, you're actually cutting out or ripping out that page with your skirt blocks, and you're just going to rough cut around your front and your back skirts. Okay, and this is where the blank sheet comes into play. So when we add gathers, we can actually spread them out at our darts. So you're going to start with your front here, and at your dart point, you're just going to draw a nice line that's sort of parallel to your center front there, all the way down to your hemline. And you're going to do the same to your second dart. So we're going to take this line and we're going to draw it all the way down. Okay, and then depending on how much gathers you want to add, we could even do another line over here. And you kind of want to space your gathers out symmetrically, because if you had a detail or anything, spreading out your slice lines helps to make your pattern not as distorted. Okay, so I've given myself sort of 3 lines and broken it into 4 different quadrants. So before we start slicing, I want you to number your little quadrants, because if they drop or go anywhere, you won't know where each one went before. So also, I'm going to draw, so this is our hip line right here. If we're going to do like a mini skirt, that would be like, well, you'd want it a bit lower, but that's sort of a hip guidance there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to draw a nice horizontal line on our blank page, a little towards the top, not much, but just draw a nice sort of straight line across your page. And you'll see why. So now you're going to need a pair of scissors, and we're going to cut between 1 and 2 out. So we're going to cut right up our pencil line between 1 and 2 all the way up, so it comes completely apart. Okay, and now cut between 2 and 3. And when you get to that dart, you can just cut up your dart leg like that. And lastly, between 3 and 4. And again, cutting just up that dart leg. Okay, so with your tape, you're going to tape number 1 just in place and towards the left-hand side of your page. And see that sort of hip line? If you keep that right on your line that you marked, then it's going to keep, again, our skirt block nice and straight so it doesn't distort while we add our fullness. And we are going to add a 1/2 inch spacing between here. So if I come onto this, I'm going to give myself 2 ticks, a 1/2 inch away, a 1/2 inch away. Okay, so I have 1 tick above my line and 1 tick below the line, so I can tape number 2. So now my hip line is still going to stay, you know, matching here, but my edge of my skirt block is going to move in slightly here so that it's right against my new tick. Okay, use some tape again, tape that skirt into place. Again, 1/2 inch away between 2 and 3, I'm going to tick 1 sort of landmark above my hip line and 1 below it. And now I'm going to take piece 3 and add it in the same way we just added 2. Okay, so right against those ticks, and my line is nice and straight. Okay, and tape that into place as well. Last one, 1/2 inch away, 1 above, 1 below, and taping our final piece 4 into place. Awesome. So once you have all your sliced pieces back in order with a 1/2 inch sort of spread in between, what we've done is we've expanded our waistline. It looks kind of big and rectangular, but if we actually gathered in the waist, it would add, you know, fullness there that would shrink to fit the waist of the person you're making for it, and it would add a cute full hem to it as well. Okay, now this is one of your terms in the front. We have a broken line here where it doesn't connect. So you need to true up your line, T-R-U-E. Truing the line means connecting it, and that's through your dart as well, because the darts become part of the waist, so that you have a solid waistline, and you're going to true your hemline. That will be the completion of this draft. So you get to go ahead and do the same to the back, spreading a 1/2 inch and taping it on the back side, because you will not fit the front and the back on this piece of paper. So watch this again if you have to, but you are taping 4 squares on the back with a nice horizontal line to keep your hip line lined up. Okay, our next draft is to draft a 6-score skirt. And what 6-score means is that there's 6 sort of panels that go around you. Each, like the front will have 3, so a center front piece, and then a left front and a right front. And so will the back. The back will have a center back and a left back and a right back. And altogether, you would count sort of 6 panels all the way around this skirt as it is sewn. So you are gonna, again, rip out your page, rough cut around your skirt front and skirt back. I'm gonna start with our skirt front. You are going to use the dart closest to center front, so closest to the straight edge here. And we're gonna draw a line all the way down to our hemline again. That is perfectly parallel to your center front. So sometimes it helps you if you put a ruler to one of the grid lines right on center front, so it stays nice and parallel there. And you're gonna draw this all the way up to your dart, okay? And so I'm going to already draw a place on fold line. So the fold line is a long sort of bent arrow pointing to the edge that would be placed on fold, because this will actually open to be one big piece. Okay, now we are going to eliminate the other dart. We don't want that in there because we're having seams. Seams also give shape to a skirt. So going back to draft number 1, we're going to measure that opening, which I recall it being 0.2, maybe it was 0.3, 0.3, yep. Okay, so that's 0.3, and our dart legs were 2 centimeters. Okay, so 2 centimeters was our dart leg. So we are going to remove it off our side seam. So I'm going to make a tick at 0.3. We're only removing 1 dart. This guy's going to get cut out. You'll see what happens in a second there. And then you're going to take 2 centimeters and put a tick there. And we're going to curve out, color that one off, slice this one gone off of that dart. Okay, so now you're going to cut up your line and you're going to go starting at the hemline here. We are going to cut all the way up. Now when you reach your dart, don't cut up the middle of it. I see that lots. Cut up that edge of the dart, and guess what? You're cutting out the dart because we're actually going to sew it into a seam. So that's eliminating it right there. We cut it out to sew it back into a seam line. Okay, so we have 2 pieces. You don't have to tape them perfectly on a line because they're not actually sewn and we're not truing up a line. They're 2 separate pieces. This is my center front place on fold piece, and this would be my side front piece. Okay, and it would be a cut 2 and a cut 1. Now, anytime you slice a pattern and you're going to make it now being sewn together, we have to add seam allowance back in. So think of it as this way. You slip and, ripped your jeans. And if you just sewed your jeans back together where the rip was, your jeans would get tighter because you can't just butt up your fabric of your jeans perfectly and mend the hole that way. I mean, patching you could, but if you're actually going to seam it, it would shrink the circumference of that pant leg. Okay, so we never, when we draft, want to change the size of our original block. So all I want to see here is this little border. We would normally in full scale add 1.5 centimeters or 5/8 of an inch paper to this edge, all the way down. And I just want to see it also on this side is a little border all the way down so that I can tell that you thought about seam allowance. You would sew that seam back together. Again, we've taken out the dart already by cutting it out, and we've moved our remaining dart off our side seam. So this one is done on the front. Now again, on the back side of this piece of paper, we are going to do the back. So the back, again, we're going to draw a line closest to our center back, so closest to the straight edge, and making sure that's nice and parallel to our center back. We are going to draw this line all the way down. Okay, we're going to move this dart off the side. So this one, the dart opening was 0.7. Okay, and the dart leg is 3.5 centimeters. Okay, so just like draft 1 again, you get lots of practice. 0.7 off my waist, 3.5 down the side. And sorry, my camera's moving a bit on you there. Okay, so we 0.7 and 3.5, and we're going to softly curve this outward. We're going to shade off the part we wouldn't keep. We're going to cross out that dart to show that we've manipulated it. And same thing, we can draw our place on fold line, because this would be a place on fold for our center back. And we're going to cut up, unless we had a zipper at our center back, but this one we would have zipper on side seam if it's a fold. And we're going to cut up our line all the way again. When you reach the bottom of that dart, you're going right to get that side cut out, and then you're going to cut up the left side of that dart so you actually lose that triangle of paper. And we're going to tape our center back piece into our booklet nicely. And we're gonna tape our side back next to it. And we have to just replace seam allowance because we would be sewing this piece to each other after we cut them out separately. You don't have to measure this little border. Like in real full scale, you definitely would. It would be 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimeters. But for the sake of our drafting, this shows me you've thought about seam allowance. And you would add a little border to both those sides, not any other side, to represent that you would need to replace seam allowance to sew those pieces together. And that is a 6-score skirt. Okay, our next draft is an A-line skirt. And so an A-line skirt represents a gentle flare out. So when we wear the skirt, we kind of resemble the letter A, like our skirt sort of V's away from us, okay? And so this is probably one of my favorite drafts. I have the front block, so again, you've torn your page out with your blank blocks, you've rough cut them out, and we're gonna tape them down to our blank page. So again, you get to draw a line from the bottom of your dart all the way down to your hemline. And you're gonna do the same to your second dart there. And you're gonna draw it all the way down. Okay, so now I would like each of you to draw a bigger little dot, like right at the bottom of those dart legs. Okay, at the very point, draw a dot, just so you don't cut through it, because we're pivoting our slices now, so we're not going all the way through. So I'm going to start at my hemline here, and I'm going to start to cut my skirt block. Okay, and I'm going all the way up my lovely line, and I'm stopping at my dot. Okay, because now I'm going to turn it around. So I slid up to that dot. Now I'm going to cut down my dart leg, and I'm going to stop at my dot. So it's holding on by the tiniest piece of paper. Now watch what happens. As soon as I close my darts up, so I join my two lines so that they connect and close like this, look what happens to my skirt. It naturally pops open to have fullness. Okay, so I'm going to close those up at the top, and I'm going to use a piece of tape in a sec. Actually, I'll tape it after I cut my second one. So do the same to your second line, cutting from the hem all the way up to that little dot, and cutting down all the way to your dot. Okay, so careful, your piece is a little fragile right now, but now if we close the one dart right there, and we close our second dart like that, hey, our nice skirt naturally starts to flare into a close A-line shape. So I'm going to tape my darts together up there, and I'm going to add a few pieces of tape to my bottom here to hold those into place. Okay, so it's pretty good. The only thing is it needs just a touch more flare. So the general rule is whatever your darts popped open down here. So for instance, if I look here, we have an inch between here. Okay, we are going to add half that amount to our side seam. So half an inch. This is 1 inch. Okay, we are going to add a ½ inch to our side seam, and make sure again it's the curved edge and not the perfectly straight edge. Okay, our center front always remains that perfectly straight side. So I'm going to put my ruler on a ½ inch here, and I'm going to give myself sort of a tick out to the side. Okay, ½ inch. Now we don't want to make our waist bigger, so approximately at your hip line, okay, just slightly above, we are going to just gently tilt our ruler like that so that it goes from your black hip line slowly out to your ½ inch. Okay, so again, we're not drawing it starting from our waist. We don't want to change anything to do with our waist. We just want to give it a little bit more of an A shape to our hem. And we again have to true up our hemline, so that's lining up our broken lines together so that they connect. Okay, and that is your A-line skirt front. You get to do it to your back. So drawing 2 lines up to your darts in your back, closing your back darts, and adding again half the width that it's spread to your side seam. You can always watch this video portion again, and you are taping your back skirt to the back side of that page. Okay, for our kick pleat, it's actually quite an easy draft. Just note that we are only using the back block for this draft, so don't worry about cutting out the front block. So all you're going to need to do is cut out the back one, and you can recycle the front one. Okay, so once you've cut out your back block, a kick pleat is like a little vent on the back of our skirt. So if we had sort of like a pencil skirt and it was a little bit more fitted around down towards our knees, we would need to have a kick pleat in the back to allow for some movement, especially when walking upstairs. So I have my back block here. Just tape it somewhere on the middle of your page, and then we are going to draft this little rectangle, which will represent our kick pleat at center back. So this time we want to make sure our kick pleat is happening on the straight edge, because the kick pleat would happen always on center back of our little skirt. Okay, and in the instructions it says it would be a 5 centimeter tall kick pleat. So with your ruler, from your hemline, you're going to take your ruler and make a little dash 5 centimeters above, okay, and 1.5 centimeters wide. So you can go ahead and measure 1.5 centimeters and give yourself a little tick. And I would give yourself a couple 1.5 centimeter ticks again to make sure that it stays nice and parallel to our skirt. Okay, so this is sort of, well, this is just a rectangle shape that's off the center back of our skirt. So we would connect our line at the top here. Okay, we would connect our little lines even with our hemline down here. And then we would connect our tickies that we made along the top here. Okay, and this little rectangle that again is 1.5 centimeters in width and 5 centimeters tall would represent your kick pleat. And ta-da, that was an easy draft. Our next draft is our single godet skirt. So godet is, well, it's a triangular piece of fabric that adds fullness to, well, on this one, the center back. So I kind of relate this to the big Oscar dresses where the ladies have almost like a train of fabric coming out from basically below their bum, and it's a big sort of extra piece that adds a lot of fullness to their dress. Now, this is just a single godet. If you had like your 6-gore skirt and you had multiple godets going around your skirt, it could form a tulip skirt. So there's lots of variations where you can add a godet. For our purpose today, we're doing the single at the center back. And so again, we only need our back block. So recycle your front block and we'll get started. So once you've cut your back block out, we are going to tape it again close to the middle of our page. Now a godet, I will tell you when we get there, doesn't run parallel to our hem like the kick pleat did. So our godet was 2.5 inches in length. So if I go again up center back, not off of the side seam on this one, center back, and I'm going to put my ruler down and I'm going to measure up 2.5 centimeters and give myself a tick. Okay. And then it asks for 1 inch wide. So at the hemline now, you are going to measure 1 inch away. Keep your ruler, you know, nice and straight with your hemline. There we go. And I'm going to give just myself a dot. I'm not drawing a line. You could draw it like a ticky line. It's just a subtle line. That's not going to be actually our bottom of our godet. Okay, so this little dot here is sort of our angle corner. Now, this was a straight line that was 2.5 inches. A diagonal always takes longer. So think about running across a field directly or going diagonally across a field. It would take longer, right? So put your 2.5 inches right at the top of your dot that was 2.5 and keep your ruler in line with your other dot. And what you get here is the dot actually comes just shy of that last one. Okay, so now you can draw this as being your line. Okay, and you're stopping it just short because that's your 2.5 inch distance. And now with just a subtle curve to that, you're going to bring it into your center back. So that's a proper godet, because if this fabric dropped and hung close to your body, it would be parallel to hemline. If we took it to the very end, that would actually be longer than 2.5 inches. And if it dropped down against your body, it would hit longer and it would look funny because your hemline wouldn't be parallel anymore. You'd have a longer bit. So that is how we draft a single godet at our center back. Okay, for our last draft, we've already learned how to do gathers. And so, and the yoke isn't as relevant. I want to do a circle skirt with you. I find that lots of times for cosplay characters or just for fun, the circle skirt is a good one to draft for even Halloween. So similar to our A-line, we want to add fullness to our hem, but not to our waist. So you're going to draw a line again right down from your darts. And you are also going to draw one kind of halfway in between the gap here. So I just kind of landmarked my middle there, all the way up though to your waist. Okay, so from hem all the way up to waist. And then draw another line halfway in between this one. So we've drawn 4 lines, which give us 5 sort of sections. And this last one is also from waist. Okay, so if you cut and do the exact same step we did with our A-line. So remember, with the A-line, we did dots here, so we didn't cut right through our dart. You can go ahead and cut away all the way up to that dot, and again at the bottom here. And then we're gonna go down to the dot, but not through it, okay? So they're like very fragile, holding on by sort of that little dot. The other one, cut from hemline, but you're almost gonna put a dot at your waist because we don't wanna go right through our waist. So kind of put a dot up here on both, just to remind yourself, don't cut all the way. If you do by chance cut all the way through, we just tape it back together. That's what tape's for, but we're gonna stop just shy of our waist at the top there, so that actually doesn't fall apart. And we're gonna do that to our last one as well. Okay, so a circle skirt, essentially when you cut it out, we normally fold our fabric with salvages together and we get one side a fold and it'll look like a long skinny sort of hot dog bun. If I flipped it back up on itself, it's sort of double layered and I'd have like a double fold here and I'd have a fold here. That's how we lay out a circle skirt, so it has no seams around the whole thing. And so essentially you want a right angle. So for those of us who forget a right angle, if you keep your sort of ruler on your bottom of your page here, and we want to make it a big right angle because this is a big skirt. So if I draw one line sort of down closer to the edge of one of my pages, and then I line up a line right on there, and I draw it coming this way, I get a really nice right angle. Essentially, we want our piece to look like a big circle that reaches from one corner to the other. So the one we don't really have control over are those darts again. So again, we're gonna just close the two up and put a little piece of tape, just enough to hold that dart closed. Okay, and then we're gonna close up this guy at the same time. I'm gonna wrap my tape sort of around my dart there. And I kind of folded it a little heavy there. Let me just not fold it quite so far down. There we go. Okay, so I've closed up my two darts and it naturally spreads my page. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to bring this guy all the way up to my right angle there, while keeping this guy on the line over here. So it's a bit of a tiny bit of a juggling act to begin with. It's okay. You just want to be making sure that your waist starts on that line, because we don't want to get a bigger waistline, and then it ending there. So that's sort of perfect right there, is that my waist edge starts on that line. So I'm going to take a piece of tape right now and I'm going to tape that one into place. Okay, so the top of my waist. And then this guy, the waist fits over here. And so again, I'm going to tape this guy down there. Okay, and now I have kind of control on where these last pieces sort of fall. Okay, so they kind of do its own thing once we've spread them that way. So you can tape those into place so that they kind of just stay down and aren't flipping up at you. Yes, we use a lot of tape in drafting. And so now we have a circle skirt. We have a choppy waist. It's kind of, you know, hexagonal. So we would true this up. So you would take your pencil line here and you would just draw a little smoother curve so it didn't jolt in at those little spots where it had to be sliced. But you'd give yourself a smoother waist. Okay, and then, hey, guess what? There are French curves in the classroom where you can use it for helping that lovely circle skirt connect together so that you have one solid hemline. Okay, and so this piece would be a place on fold. And we would make this, because this is our waist shape, we would make this line now perfectly straight on our skirt. Okay, so this little curvy edge would actually get removed all the way past our right angle. And this would also be a fold. And it would open up to be a big circle, and that's 1/4 of your waist. So when it's on a double fold, it would actually form a full circle that's the size of your waist. So this is now a circle skirt for you. You are going to repeat it with your back, and you're going to tape it on the back side of your last page. And you have now completed all your drafts for the lower body.